What if I told you that pressure is part of the planting? All right, my darling Dahlias, we are going to start with a confession right out of the gate. All right? I have been using a daily Bible app. And I'm on that free trial, right? So it's basically spiritual capitalism counting down in the background. But last week, a verse came through the Epistle of James, chapter 1, verse 3-4. And I just got to tell you, I did not get it. At least not right away. Okay? And it's kind of funny, right? Because those of you who've been following me and following me on the old socials, you've been seeing me post a lot on the old TikTok and the old Instagram, a dopamine. And I've been doing pretty good with the verses so far. You know, like, oh, yes, Lord. Yes, very good. You know, yeah, you got me. I got you. Very efficient. Yes, curated spirituality. And then this one actually met me where I am. In the middle of something messy, right? In this uncomfortable, pressurized, like a situation that is actively testing my faith, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. And you know what? I'm still in the middle of being bloomed. I am the plant in the wind right now, right? Like a veritable, I don't know, inflatable sign character, right? That's just absolutely flapping in the breeze, in the winds of change of my life. So I'm going to share with you the verse that met me in my mess, all right? And I'm going to read to you two versions of it. First, the Wycliffe Bible version, which is the Old English version, and then I'm going to read you the King James version, okay? So first, the Wycliffe in Old English, so please forgive some of my pronunciation. Witting ye that the proving of your faith worketh patience, and patience hath a perfect work, that ye be perfect and whole, and failing ye in no thing. Okay, what does that mean in modern day English? Well, let's do modern-ish day English with the King James version. Here's what it says. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So I just kept sitting with that, because this time the verse actually didn't feel like inspiration to me. It felt like a mirror. Not something I was simply reading, but something I was actually standing inside of. And maybe that's why it hit me differently. Maybe that's why I didn't see it at first, or I couldn't see it. Because I didn't meet this verse from a distance, right? Not from a consequence-free distance. No, I've met it from inside the pressure system of the current storm in my life. But then here's a thought that kind of popped into my mind as I was sitting with this verse. And it really landed like truth, okay? Because I think this is really what it's trying to say to me. Faith that is never stretched never develops tensile strength. Tensile strength. Okay, this is the kind of strength that only exists because something was pulled, pressed, shaped, held through resistance without snapping. That part's important. And suddenly, James is not just talking about belief. He's talking about adaptation. Which brings me into the body. Because this is where it gets impossible for me to unsee that we are in fact created by a divine designer. The body already knows all about adaptation. The body is basically the anatomy of becoming. So let's talk about our nervous system first, okay? Every time you learn something, every time you survive something or you respond to something, your nervous system is quietly rewiring your brain like a living constellation. What fires together, wires together. Not metaphorically, literally. Repeated activation builds pathways. Repeated endurance builds efficiency. Your nervous system becomes shaped by what you repeatedly move through or survive through without shutting down. Faith, in that sense, isn't just belief. It is patterned response under pressure. It's what your system learns to do when life doesn't feel safe or simple. And then the musculoskeletal story steps in to really hammer home this point, okay? Bones are not built in comfort. They are built in load. If you remove stress entirely, bone density decreases. The structure weakens because it is never asked to hold weight. Muscles follow that same language. Micro stress, micro tears, repair, reinforcement, strength. No resistance, no adaptation. No load, no resilience. So when the Epistle of James talks about testing, producing endurance, it sounds a lot less like spiritual poetry and more like biological truth wearing spiritual language. Because here is the fun fact that I'm sure you know to be true. Sometimes you might not know how something works, but you still know it works. Sometimes humans recognize the truth before we truly understand the mechanics behind it. Right? We understood adaptation before neuroscientists and fitness gurus mapped it all out for us. Farmers knew that seasons changed soil. Blacksmiths knew that heat changed metal. Musicians knew repetition changed skill. And spiritual teachers knew repeated response shapes character. Faith, like flesh, is built through what it learns to hold. And maybe that is the deeper invitation inside of this verse. Not just surviving difficulty, but allowing endurance to shape us into people who can remain open, rooted, compassionate, and connected, even while under pressure. Spiritual stamina builds spiritual resilience. And spiritual resilience creates deeper integration. And true integration, it reminds us we were never meant to bloom alone. P.S. Newsflash. The strongest gardens are never made of one flower trying to survive by itself. They are ecosystems, living things strengthening one another by simply growing together. Now let us enter the garden and see this reflected in the natural world, okay? So for today's Garden of Grace flower, I want a plant that does not just grow. I want one that's shaped. Enter the weeping wisteria. A flowering vine that doesn't just simply stand upright and declare itself finished. It climbs, it drapes, it winds its way around whatever structure it is given. And here's the part that really matters. Wisteria often takes years before it blooms meaningfully. Years of training, of pruning, of redirecting and shaping. Left alone, it just becomes wild and tangled and pretty much overwhelming. But if it is guided patiently, repeatedly, sometimes even dramatically cut back, it becomes one of the most breathtaking cascades of bloom in the plant world. When mature, wisteria spills from archways in heavy curtains of bloom, so full and fragrant that they almost seem too beautiful for the structure that is holding them. It is not formed in one season. It is formed through years of intentional shaping. And still, it does not lose its identity. In fact, it becomes more itself through the shaping, not less. Which feels like James again, right? Endurance not as suppression, but as formation. Now let us truly enter the garden of grace and offer up a prayer to the Creator. Grand Gardener, divine designer, teach me the patience of growing things that cannot be rushed. When I feel pruned, help me remember I am not being diminished, I am being directed. When I feel stretched, help me remember that I am not breaking. I am becoming capable of holding more light, more weight, more bloom. Like wisteria, let me lean on structure. Like wisteria, let me learn that structure is not the enemy of beauty, but the scaffold of it. Let my nervous system soften into trust. Let my bones learn strength without brittleness. Let my faith learn endurance without despair. And when I cannot see the bloom yet, help me trust the season I am still inside. Amen. And so it grows. My gorgeous gardenias, you are not being undone. You are being made able. And sometimes the pressure isn't the sign that something is wrong in the garden. It's the sign that something is finally strong enough to grow there. P.S. Growth isn't sustained by self-hatred. It is sustained by the type of self-love that stays curious instead of cruel while we are still becoming, while we are still adapting. Perhaps you'll agree with me that the more whole we become within ourselves, the more deeply connected we become to the garden around us. So if you are going through a season of pressures, of posture changes, and persnickety patterns, ask yourself if maybe this moment is inviting you beyond the old, what didn't kill me made me stronger mindset. Maybe this season isn't just about becoming tougher. Maybe it's about becoming more integrated, more rooted, more aware of what your mind, your body, and your spirit are trying to grow through this pressure instead of merely surviving through it. So if this episode encouraged you, challenged you, or simply reminded you that you are not the only plant getting tossed around in the wind right now, please subscribe to the Fl'Awesome Blossom YouTube channel. Share this episode with somebody who might need it, and come join our growing little garden online. You can support the podcast through Patreon, follow along through social media, and find all of the petals, the prayers, the bloom bursts, and bonus blossom bits through the links below. Until next time, my darling dahlias, mes petits choux, and my blooming buds, go out there and live your life in full-on Fl'Awesome Blossom. You'll see me next time.